Monday morning, and I'm here answering the fantasy questions that are keeping you up at night. Now, guys, obviously Super Bowl Monday as well. So if you're an NFL fan, drop a comment below. Let me know which team you go for. Otherwise, let's rip into the questions here. First one we got, who of the Titans' cheapies is best to have? Now, we've got three options here, Paxton, Cooper Bai, and Fayamani. For these guys here, all three look like reasonable options, but I'll give you the order here. I think Paxton might be the best play first, just in terms of job security there. He's about a 45, 46 average in reserve grade. Looks like he's going to be that starting edge back rower and hopefully can lock down an 80-minute role. If he does that, it's smooth sailing here, right? But those minutes are the question there. Now, if we jump across to Cooper Bai, I think he has more upside than Paxton does. So you look at him, it's a 52 average in 58 minutes in reserve grade, which is a higher ceiling than Paxton has. Pretty strong try scoring rate in that as well as a middle forward, so playing lock and playing off the bench there. So I like the look of him too. Both of them scored well in terms of PPM when they played in first grade as well. And you've got Jolliffe out for the year. So for Cooper Bai, there is a potential that he makes a big jump there too. I'm probably going to have both these guys. Just full transparency, I'm going to have both. If I was going to split them down the middle, I'd say Paxton is the more guaranteed early moneymaker, but I think Cooper Bai will hit a higher ceiling at some point during the year. And then for Fayamani, it's a 29 average in reserve grade, only 3 games played in Rezzies. I'm looking at Yafs, so I've got to look more deeply into the numbers there, but they weren't as impressive as I thought. So he's probably my third guy. And you look at the Titans too; they got a bit of depth in the back line there as well. So as much as they've lost Cam Pereira, they've lost Brian Kelly, they could shift that around a bit and it could mess with us there. Rolling through from Butters here, rank these cheapy backs fantasy-wise. We've got Chester, Farley, 2, Fayamani, Makasani, and Lalili. A lot of options here. Lots to talk about. And I'm starting with the cheapies because that's the big question everyone has. These cheapie conversations, by the way, they're going to change a lot. It's going to change heaps because we're going to have more team lists come through. We're going to see trial performances. We're going to see a bunch of different stuff. And I'm reserving the right to change my mind for the next couple of weeks on these. But as of today, it's really based on the numbers there and what I see for these teams. So first up, Sedu 2. For 2, I think he's the best option of the bunch. And he looked good in the trial game on the weekend. He averages 36 when he plays center in reserve grade. We don't have a lot of winger numbers there, but 36 at center should translate. At fullback, he averages 57, which is a smaller sample size. He's not playing fullback. So I think he has that upper ceiling where he can be a great ball runner, score a few tries. The Dragons do feed their edges quite well. As much as they don't have the best reputation for attack, the Dragons' attack is pretty good. So I'm thinking Setu 2 was going to be really solid. Going through Chester, he's my number 2 man here. And again, the numbers don't lie. So 38 average when he plays center. I believe that's his number in first grade, right? So 38 average in first grade across, I think it's 3 games there. 52 average. And by the way, the notes, they're written in language for me. But 52 average in reserve grade at center. It's only a small sample size, so I wouldn't read into that. And his fullback average in reserve grade is a 39, which I'd read into a bit more. So for Tommy Chester, he's historically been a fullback in Rezzies, but he looks like he's going to take that center spot for the Cowboys. He's my next man up. Then David Farley, a 34 average on the wing in Rezzies there. He played center on the weekend, trying to take that spot off Sully, potentially steals a spot somewhere. Your assumption here when you originally asked this question was if they met the first grade side. So if they do, I think Farley is the third man up, but I think he's less likely to make it. Then I've got Makasini here, 30 average and reserve grade on the wing, and I think this Tigers attack can produce a bit more this year. Fayamani is my next man up here with a 29 average and reserve grade playing center. I think he has some upper ceiling. I think he's a bit of a bulldog, a bit of a monster with the ball in hand. But I'm going to need to see it there a bit more. And then Lily is the last one here. He averages 16 in reserve grade, I believe it is, and 22 in first grade on the wing. So really poor fantasy scorer. Does look like a good player, but he's about 19 years old. So I think he's a bit more, development away from locking a spot up. Now, rolling through, Mitch, next question here. Thoughts on Brandon Smith? And this is the last of the cheapy questions before we go into the halves next. So for Brandon Smith, what do we do here, right? So he's been a bit of a beast in the past. His career average at hooker when he plays a bit of minutes is a 45. He's priced at 300K. The big question is, does he get the minutes there? Does he stay fit? And what happens with Marmazelis in terms of, stealing a bench spot or maybe coming on and Smith goes into the forward rotation? Like, what's the go there? My thinking here is that 300K, this is too hard to ignore. And I think there's a good chance that we see this Rabbitohs forward pack in particular looking a lot better this year. So from my perspective, Brandon Smith's a borderline must-have. I'm saying that about too many cheapies, right? But I really think if he looks decent enough in the trial games and gets a few minutes there, I'm going to have Brandon Smith at my side. I wouldn't start him I wouldn't make him my round one starter, but I definitely would have him in the starting 21 player squad there. Now, we've got some questions on the halves, and I'll give you a bit of a spoiler here. It's really about Dewey, Brown, Moses, those sort of value options there. So I'm going to go through some numbers here and give you everything you need to make your choice on these guys. So first up, Dylan Brown versus Adam Dewey. Now, obviously, Dylan Brown is a bit cheaper than Dewey, but I'll give you the numbers here. For Brown first, he had a pretty average year last year, averaged 38 points when he was playing in the halves there. That jumps when you look at previous years to a 49 in 2024, a 55, a 53, a 51, a 53, and it's a 60 average when he plays halfback. So, from my perspective, Dylan Brown is a pretty rock solid sort of 50 to 55 kind of going when he plays in the halves, and the team is not going absolutely terribly. Now, he joins Newcastle, who have some questions, but I think he's a pretty safe pick to go, 50, 52 average this year. So from my perspective, Dylan Brown is serious value. He's 10 points of value, maybe more, and you probably want to have him in your side. Now for Dewey here, he has the buy in round one. That's a big concern there, but the numbers are good. So when he plays halfback, it's a 50 average. When he plays 5'8", it's a 60 average. And when he plays in the halves next to Jerome Luai, which is the configuration for this year, small sample size, but that's a 60 average as well. Downsides for Dewey are threefold. One, he's more expensive than Brown. Two, he has the buy in round one, so you don't actually have 100% confirmation of his position. And three, the injury cloud, it always hits Dewey. I'm hoping it doesn't this year, but it has been something that's plagued his career. So from my perspective, Dylan Brown's the first one you want to have, but I think a lot of good rosters are going to have both of these guys. Now, rolling through, casual baller, legend, how you doing, mate? He asks Dylan Brown versus Mitch Moses, and you've heard the numbers about Brown. So I've got Brown forecast as a low 50s guy, priced at about a 38. So that's a pretty easy option to bring into your team. Moses, when we look at his numbers over the years, last year, again, not as good, a 46 average, but before that, a 49, 58, 52, 55, 56, 55. Now, I do adjust these numbers a little bit, so I don't include games where guys got injured mid-game and that kind of thing. I'm looking at their play in the halves when they play 70 plus minutes in a game, right? So, because I think that's really an indicator of their average. So for Moses, we're more looking at that sort of 55 area, 55 instead of a 52 for Dylan Brown. He can go up to that sort of 58. That was his top average there. He does play next to Jonah Pezzett this year, though. So does Pezzett steal a few kick meters? There's a lot of questions there. It is a bit murky right now for Moses. So from my perspective, you've got maybe a 3-point difference in projections there from these guys, maybe even 5 points if you want to stretch it out. But you don't have a lot of injury risk with Dylan Brown compared to a Mitch Moses. You do have a better Parramatta side compared to that Newcastle side, though. But a lot of these numbers from Moses were when Parramatta were a team that was going into the top four and competing for grand finals. So from my perspective, Dylan Brown over Moses is a pretty easy play here. I think Moses will outscore Brown, but I think the price difference there really justifies it. If they were the same price, you'd probably go Moses, but even then, the injury risk does make this one a bit murky. And then the third question here, and we're completing the trifecta, is Adam Dewey versus Mitch Moses. Now, you've heard the numbers on both these guys. From my perspective, it's Brown, then it's Moses. Sorry, Brown, Brown, Dewey, then Moses. And we're first thing in the morning here before Super Bowl Monday. So fully sober right now. But Brown, Dewey, Moses. And from this perspective, it's just that I think Dewey has the same ceiling that Moses has, where he can be that 60 guy. Both of them can do that. Both of them have some injury questions. Moses has better job security, but I'd go Dewey just for the price difference there. So my side will almost certainly have Dylan Brown and Adam Dewey. And Moses is someone that I'm thinking about considering. We'll see how we go on that one. Now we'll keep rolling through here, and Ryan jumps in. Good to see you, mate. A couple of questions here from Ryan. He's got Jai Gray versus Keanu Keeney at fullback, and then Kale Ero versus Jacob Carraz at center. So for Jai Gray versus Keanu Keeney, this one's a pretty tight one. Now, obviously, a bit of a price difference here. Jai Gray is priced at about a 39. Keanu Keeney is priced at a 45. So for these two guys, they're both, smaller guys, both dynamic, both can pump out 300 meters in a game, both good attacking players. I think South Sydney improved more this year than the Titans do. I think Titans, you lose Dave Fafita. He wasn't the best, but you lose Kieran Foran. They lose a few troops here. Like Brian Kelly goes, Alcam Pereira goes. These are all guys that they might be happy enough to let go and replace with other players. But I don't know. I mean, on that side, I think the Titans might still struggle this year. But Keanu Keeney is a guy who had a bunch of injuries last year, so he should make a leap this year. So for him, he averages about 47 at fullback. He's priced about a 45. I think he was about a 55 average in reserve grade. So I mean, he could make a leap to a 50 average, maybe even low 50s there, be a bit of value. I don't think the value is as significant. Whereas for Jai Gray, he was a 45 average last year at fullback. He's priced at a 39. And you improve South Sydney because a lot of those games, Souths were getting absolutely smashed. They were missing all their troops last year. So he could potentially jump into that sort of high 40s conversation, just like Keanu Keeney. And he's priced 6 points cheaper than Keeney. So I think they're very similar bets. I think Keeney has a higher nuclear upside, but I think Jai Gray has a better base because I think South Sydney are a better side. So from my perspective, Gray is the better option here. And I've actually changed my tune on that a little bit. I had Keeney in my side for a while, but I swapped Keanu Keeney for Jai Gray about a week ago in terms of my fantasy side. So I'm going Gray over Keeney. It's a bit of a long-winded explanation, but just showing you how I think about this stuff. And then Kale Iro versus Jacob Kiraz. So for Iro, he jumped to a 52 average playing center last year. I think it was a 45 average the year before. He scored a try in basically every game he played at center, where he played full game though. So that 52 average relies on a very, very, very high try scoring rate in a Cronulla side that does score a lot of tries, right? So you could bet on that again if you want to. But he had good base stats the year before. The big issue for Kale Iro is that he doesn't really offload, and that's where he falls behind a lot of other centers. So you're wanting to see a few offloads from Kale Iro here. The comparison here with Kiraz is more about the trajectory of Kiraz. So the last 4 years, Kiraz has gone from a 39 average to a 40 average to a 48 average to a 52 average when playing those full games in position, right? So for Jacob Kiraz, I'm liking the increases. I like the improvements. A lot of the time, we see these guys continue to improve. They get more established in the game. Their bodies toughen up a bit. They grow out of those youthful injuries and they sort of step up. And the Dogs here, they'll have a better platform as well. They got Leo Thompson in the team. That halves combination, Lockie Galvin came in. He was feeding that edge that Kiraz is on. We saw Stephen Crichton going to fullback a bit. He'll be back at center this year as well. So I think that edge is going to be a bit better in attack, and maybe Kiraz could score a few more tries too. So from my perspective, the more I look at this, the more I like Kiraz actually compared to Kale Iro. The downside for Kiraz is there is a bit of an injury cloud that he's under right now, so you have to keep an eye on that. But if I was picking one of these two guys, I'm probably talking myself into Kiraz as the preseason goes along, and I'm starting to steer away from Kale Iro. I don't want guys who had historic try scoring rates last year. Like that's just, that's not really what I want. I think it was 8 tries in 9 games or something like that for Kale Iro when he was playing center last year. So I'd rather go with the Kiraz route. I think he has some try scoring upside. And so for me, it's Jai Gray and it's Jacob Kiraz on this front. Now, rolling through, we'll get to our next question here. And it's Mahi. How you doing, man? One of our best news sources on the Discord, always sharing the good stuff. He asks the question, hey, Longy, what's the thoughts on Nafahu White as a pod play? Nafahu White's someone I haven't really considered much this year. For him, I've got some numbers here. 638K, so he's priced at about a 50. Last year, he had 30 tackles a game, 150 meters a game, 3 tackle breaks a game. So really what you're backing here is a progression for him where he just takes another step as a player. Now, he is a guy who is on the up in terms of his trajectory, but I look at this Roosters side and I'm a bit worried about where the minutes come from. So Lindsay Collins had a down year last year for minutes. We've seen a guy like Fiketti. He played more edge. I don't think he plays as much edge this year. Saul Wong's going to be on the bench. He probably plays a bit in the middle as well. They've got Blake Steep there, who he needs to get some minutes at some point. Like they've got a bunch of guys who can steal minutes. Then you throw Connor Watson in to the middle forward rotation because you have Robson coming in on the hooker spot. There's a bit of a squeeze on the minutes here. So your bet here is that Nafahu White, with probably less minutes or maybe the same minutes there, just increases productivity. And that's going to be an increase of, he's already got 150 meters a game. You're saying he bumps up to maybe 180 meters a game, more productive in attack, maybe some more tackle breaks, maybe some more offloads. He doesn't offload heaps, maybe some more tries. He had a few nice try scoring games last year. I don't really see it personally. I think he's a really good option in a draft league, though. Like you can get him for a bit of value in draft. He's rock solid. He is very durable, and he gets through his work. He's a Kiwi as well, so he doesn't play Origin. I like him in a draft league, but I'm not really that interested in Classic. Saying that, if you like him and you think there's going to be some attacking upside, it's a bet you can take. Now, the big question here from Praise. How you doing, mate? Ruben Cotter versus Jermaine Hopgood versus Isaiah Papali'i. By the way, guys, these questions are all coming from Casual Crew, so link below on how to join there. All the questions coming through from the legends in the private group, and thank you guys for supporting the channel as well. Absolutely love it. Now, Ruben Cotter versus Jermaine Hopgood versus Isaiah Papali'i. I'm going to tell you a story on each of these guys that tries to convince you on each one. First one here, Jermaine Hopgood. The story you want to tell here for Hopgood is that he's priced at 597K, so he's pretty cheap there. And last year, when he moved to prop, especially over those last 6 games, the minutes increased and he averaged 58 points across that 6 weeks. He comes into this year, and the middle forward rotation is going to be Junior Paulo, Jermaine Hopgood, Jack DeBellin starting. We're going to have Dylan Walker, Sam Tuiviti, and maybe someone like Moretti or Matt Dury or someone like that coming off the bench there. So you're basically saying you want Jermaine Hopgood to play 60 to 65 minutes here, and he's going to produce a bunch of points. It's a story you can tell. It's one that I'm not fully convinced on. I actually started the preseason super hot on Hopgood, but I am cooling a bit just with Dylan Walker on the bench there. I think Riley Smith plays a bit of middle forward as well when Talon De Silva comes on. So I'm going to need to see a bit more confirmation here before I jump on Hopgood. Second one is Ruben Cotter. And spoiler, by the way, I like Papali'i the best. But Ruben Cotter, 569K. Last year, he averaged 45. That's where he's priced. He has been that 50 to 52 average in the past. So before last year, 2 of the previous 3 years, he cracked a 50 average. So you could say that he's probably going to regress in a positive direction and average you, 50 points? That's about 5 points of value there. I'm not in love with it. Cotter's good, but I don't think he has that upside that you're looking for. And he'll tick along with a bit of value there, but he's one of those guys who, because he doesn't really offload, doesn't really have that attacking play in him, it's all about meters, it's about tackles, and he can have a quiet game, which really stunts the progression there. So I see him a bit like Tom Gilbert last year. When we had Tom Gilbert last year, it was okay. It was a bit frustrating. I think Cotter's in that same boat. I think it'd be a bit of value, but I think there are better options to go for. And I'd rather go for the super cheapies or the top tier guys or those obvious value guys like Isaiah Papali'i. Now, for Papali'i, 607K. In the second row last year, he averaged 54 points. When you bump that up to full games playing in the second row, it was a 60 average. It's a limited sample size. I think it was about 6 games where he played full games. 2 of those, he scored over 70. So from my perspective, Isaiah Papali'i is one of the biggest no-brainers in fantasy here. He's a guy who has pumped out that 70-odd average in the past as well, playing at Parramatta. And that was a few years ago, but Penrith are a good side. If he gels into that spot, he's going to be rock solid. He's going to score a bunch of tries. And he has that nuclear upside to go with a very strong base there. So from my perspective, you're a fool if you don't jump on Papali'i. He's going to be in basically every side. And as I went through these questions, by the way, some of these guys weren't in my placeholder side. So I'm having to make space for Papali'i there. But yeah, so far from this video, there's a bunch of cheapies that you have to jump onto. And then there's Dylan Brown, Adam Dewey, and Isaiah Papali'i. All a little bit dicey, a little bit risky, not a sexy look at in your side, but all guys that I'm pretty convinced on here. Now, Isora asked the question here, thoughts on Herbie and Cobbo back together? For you've got, real world versus fantasy is a big question here, right? So in terms of the real world, I'm really excited to see this combination. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's one of the most explosive edges in the game that can translate to fantasy as well. And the big thing about when you're looking at an explosive edge and you're looking at explosive play is it can translate to a sprint where things perform disproportionately well. So I could see this starting super, super hot. It could also start a bit clunky there. But in terms of the raw numbers here, Cobbo, he's priced at about a 35. He's been that 39 average across his career on the wing spot. He's played in a pretty good Broncos side a lot of his career. They were average for a while as well, but the highest ceiling he has is for that low 40s area. So really you're betting on the Dolphins being a nuclear attack, and you look at Cobbo, he's got a good work rate actually. Like he's got this reputation for being lazy, but his work rate's actually fantastic. But Cobbo, the work rate's been good over the years. He's in a contract year, so he is going to play hard. I don't mind this shout, right? But across a full season, I don't think he averages over 45. But if you look at a first month or a first 6 weeks of footy, this combination could potentially score disproportionately well. And we could see, 1 or 2 games where he has one of those Jack Bostock games where, Bostock pumped out 100 plus, and Cobbo could potentially have 1 or 2 of those games, right? So that's really what you're betting on there, a spring launch. But you're also going to have a few games where he scores 25, 30, 35, where the tries don't come his way. So from my perspective, I like it a lot. I don't know if it's full value. I think Cobbo is an awesome target in a draft league, by the way, because especially for fixtures, you can really bet on those fixtures. But in a classic, comp where you're paying full price there, he's been in and out of my side. I'm all over the place on Cobbo, but I'm going to say yes. I like it as long as you really want to watch that and you're happy to see, the roller coaster there. Now, Noz comes in. How you doing, mate? Noz creates a bit of content on TikTok and Instagram, by the way, guys, so check him out. But if you could pick another team to support, the Eels don't exist. It's hypothetical. Who would it be, and why is it the Broncos? Yeah, look, the Broncos are fun. The reason I would support, I'm going to give you a few answers here. If I was going to pick the Broncos, it would be more like them winning the comp means I can't say the Broncos because that's bandwagon stuff. But if I was going to take the Broncos, it's more on the back of the fact that 2018, 2019, 2020, they went through a real rebuild and they bought through, Ricky, they bought through Payne Haas, they bought through Carrigan, Cobbo, Herbie Farmworth, Katoni Staggs, like Ezra Mam, all these guys. They brought them through and they just stuck with their rookies and they brought through this batch of super talented young guys and they just copped L after L after L after L. And there was so much pressure on the club and they stuck with that vision and they didn't take any shortcuts and they built a roster that could win comps. So from my perspective, the Broncos executed a beautiful rebuild to set up for that premiership last year. They lose Payne Haas now, so it'd be a bad time to jump on. But I respect the hell out of that. The Warriors I love as well. I think when I'm looking at, so I'm a Parramatta fan, and when I look at which club would be most compatible with my style of fandom, which is pure delusion, complaining about referees, and being super passionate, that's who I am. And I think the Warriors fan base is a bit like that too. Like you guys know it's true. And we haven't won comps in a while either, or ever for the Warriors, or ever when I was alive for Parramatta. So I think there's a really nice fit there. A lot of passion in that fan base. The Wires would be a fun one. And then the Tigers is my third answer. So I'm really a sucker for punishment. But I was a Magpies supporter until I was 5 years old. So they merged with the Tigers and the Magpies ceased to exist. I started kindergarten at 5 years old and the Eels players came to our school and I became an Eels fan at 5. So I could probably go back to the Tigers. It's not a great option, but I do remember that 2005 grand final, absolute cracking year for them. The Eels were the minor premiers that year, so they really should have won that. Anyway, guys, that's me done and dusted for fantasy Q&A. We're going to do heaps of Q&A this year. We do a bunch of live videos as well. But if you do want to join the Discord, there's most of the Discord is free. There's about 3,500 people. You can jump in. Our live game chat on the weekend, there was 2 games on Saturday. I think it was about 2,000 messages pumped through there. So the live game chats are absolutely cracker. And if you do want your questions answered, not just on these videos, but throughout the year, everyone who's a supporter of the channel, you guys get priority answers to questions. So thank you guys. I think it's about 200 of you who have signed up for that. And if you do want to jump in, links below as well. Good luck, guys, and I'll see you on the next video, which is going to be buy breakdown. So I'll see you there.